Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Phenomena Paranormal Podcast. And we have a very special episode that we're going to do as a bonus this week. And I have the pleasure of speaking with Shelley from St. Croix Paranormal. How are you, Jill?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this, and I know our listeners are going to really enjoy hearing all about your paranormal journey and what you're doing now. So for everyone's purpose, Jill is the founder and very active member of St. Croix Paranormal, and she not only has been active with this group, but she also made a special purchase of a very haunted location. This is something that I actually have secretly wanted to do for a very long time, so I'm very jealous, but also very excited to hear about it.
Yeah, it's something I've always wanted to, being an investigator myself for well over 10 years. Our group has traveled all over the country to well-known haunted locations, and kind of where I got the idea of, like, gosh, wouldn't it be kind of fun to own your own place? And so last year I was able to have the opportunity to do that.
I can completely understand that. Before we hear all about this location, can you tell me a little bit about your own journey into why you wanted to investigate the paranormal? Just start from the beginning. And I'm always fascinated to hear about what leads people into this line of work.
Well, I've always really been fascinated by ghosts and that type of thing ever since I was really little. I just remember, sitting in the dark with my cousins, listening to ghost stories on records and reading the ghost books and just kind of freaking each other out by that stuff. And my first experience actually was at my grandmother's house. She had a room upstairs that none of us kids ever really liked. It was always kind of cold. You always felt like somebody's watching you and that you weren't welcome in that room. We just never really liked it, so we never played in there very often. And there was one night that I was sleeping at my grandma's house, and I woke in the middle of the night, and I had heard these footsteps coming out of that room, and it stopped right in front of my door. And my back was to the door, but you could feel this most intense, like somebody was staring right through you. It was really intense. But, I was probably like 7 or 8, so I was pretty scared, so I didn't turn around and look.
Yeah, of course.
And I just kind of put my, covers over my head, and I'm like, oh boy, and then you kind of heard it, do like the, and then it's like turned around and it walked back in the other direction, and that was that. And then I knew it wasn't my parents because I could hear both of them snoring, and then my grandma sleeps downstairs. I asked her about it in the morning and kind of told her what happened, and she was like, oh, honey, that's just a ghost, and he wouldn't hurt you. So I thought, well, gosh, if Grandma's not scared, this is pretty cool, so I'm going to, really start looking into this kind of thing. So it kind of sent me on my journey, just reading and researching, and then in 2010, just meeting a great group of people where we were able to form the paranormal group, St. Croix Paranormal, and start investigating.
Well, so first of all, your grandma, she sounds awesome. It's always nice to have validation with that kind of thing, especially, with the paranormal. People tend to blow it off a lot, especially with children. It's your imagination or something to that effect. So it's nice when a relative can sort of validate that for you and not just, make you feel like you're seeing things. So that's great. And as far as your paranormal group, I'd love to hear about the different locations that you guys have seen and investigated, and as well as you've also been on some programs, and you guys sound like you really have had a great journey so far.
Yeah, we started out pretty strong, going into different locations. Some of the well-known ones that, of course, people know, like the Velisca Murder House was our very first one, so you never forget that.
Oh, wow.
And Waverly Hills Sanitarium. We've done Edinburgh Manor, Randolph Infirmary. We've done different jails, different asylums, just houses, Bobby Mackey's. We've kind of been everywhere.
Hey, you run the gamut, I guess. I mean, Waverly Hills is, definitely my top paranormal bucket list location. So, all of the ones that you mentioned are just, I'd love to step my foot in, and, that's sort of where I'm at in my life and my journey of wanting to go out and, aside from locally, and I get my feet wet. So yeah, that's great. I mean, the actual paranormal community has grown so much just in the past 10 years, don't you think?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I think with the advent too with the television shows, it's really brought it out to where people aren't like you're freaky now. Now it's like it's a cool thing.
Exactly.
People are more interested and apt to tell stories. I know when I meet people, and even like if I'm just at the line at the grocery store, somehow I'll just flip it in that I'm an investigator. And then usually they have a story to tell. So
that's true. I mean, I find that more and more.
Once in a while, you get the people. Yeah, once in a while you get the people look at you like, okay, you're crazy. Don't want to talk to you. Let's just pay and get you out of line.
I guess that's a good way to weed out who you want to have a conversation with, right?
Right.
So now, you are on My Ghost Story, right? Your team?
Yeah, that was the first year that we actually got together as a group, and there was a local bar in downtown Stillwater, where we're based out of, and we just heard a lot of things happening at the bar. You know, things would turn on and off, getting tossed, thrown. They'd hear a woman screaming, and when we did some research, there was an actual. She was a prostitute. She was actually thrown out of the back window, and she died when she fell to her death there. So there was just like a lot of things going on, and the police didn't like to go in the basement, so they allowed us to come in and do an investigation. And we had a bunch of different experiences. Like we heard audible woman talking, just feelings of things around, noises. Had some stuff on the spirit box, but the coolest thing that we saw and actually captured is Krista and I were upstairs on the main floor, so it's up above the street, so what we saw was not from somebody down below. And Krista and I was getting ready to run a spirit box. It was probably about 95 degrees out, even though there was air conditioning, it was still pretty hot up there. And all of a sudden it got like super ice cold. Like we both got like this massive goosebumps, and I was like, gosh, this is like really cold all of a sudden.
Right.
And then we just happened to look up at the window way, and the shadow figure went all the way across, and it was kind of spooky, almost like slow motion-y, kind of staggery, like they would do in special effects of movies. It was like really weird.
Wow.
And we both just looked at each other and like, did you just see that? And she's like, yeah.
I had a speaker difficulty, so I apologize.
That's okay.
That sounds great, though. I mean, it's nice to be able to showcase your team on a show like that, and sounds like a very exciting experience at that location. When you bring up that there was some that died on the property, that's always very interesting to me. Because, I have my theory in our communication with those that have passed. There doesn't, for me, I don't know that there always has to be somebody that passed on the location. I mean, but when there is that has happened, and I have personal experience with that here at my own home, it seems like the communication is so much more intense. There's that energy, it is just residual lingering there at the location, but it also, I think, can attract more than just the spirit of the person who passed away. I mean, do you have experience with that, where you feel like there's a history of this location, and it just seems to almost be a beacon for other spirits to come to?
Yeah, I think so, because especially if there's a lot of them there, and especially if it's a place that people investigate at, because I think they're putting out more energy and drawing things to them. Right,
especially with the spirit box. I think, I mean, that's something that I've noticed when we use that ourselves. Is it seems to suddenly where you're hearing one, you start to hear others, and I think that sort of draws them in.
Oh yeah, I believe with that too, because the spirit box for me is my favorite piece of paranormal equipment to use for investigating.
Me too.
And I've just heard so many incredible things on it. It's just like, yeah, I think, as you said, it draws in the waves. Like, there might be a passerby, like, oh, hey, I can swing by and tell you my story.
Exactly. Yeah, they just really, that also goes with the other thing that I really feel strongly about is, people tend to, if they're not in the field, maybe feel that fear when they have an experience, but I think they just so badly want to be heard. So I really like the spirit box for that, because even if I'm, trying to reach a particular person and other people jump in, I'm always fascinated to hear what they're trying to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, let's talk about your haunted location that you purchased. Again, like I mentioned, something I probably dream and talk about way too much is wanting to find an old home, a vintage era home that has haunted activity, to be able to do exactly what you're doing. Open it up to other teams to investigate. And so, can you tell us about Boyd House? I think our listeners are going to be really fascinated.
Yeah, it's a really cool house. It was built in 1901, and then the land itself and our deed goes back to 1884, when the land was actually owned by the Minneapolis and the St. Louis Railroad. And then the land was eventually owned by a bunch of different founders of the town, and lots were sold off. Eventually, it was sold to Mr. Eckhart, who was a general merchandise store owner and also the Justice of the Peace. And he also, what we found, it appears that he has passed away in the home, and some of the evidence that we've been finding, we believe he's still in the house. It was also very close to the Sioux Dakota reservation line, and we have another confirmed death in the house for sure that we know of that was all natural causes. She was elderly.
Okay.
But we do get a lot of different experiences in the house, the paranormal experience. We get a lot of equipment interaction with REM pods and K2 meters and different objects moving, footsteps, shadows, apparitions, great spirit box responses, EVPs, just a ton of stuff going on at the house.
Well, that sounds fascinating. You mentioned near a reservation, and this is something that I seem to come across a lot, is a Native American connection to hauntings. Do you have a lot of experience with that?
It seems like I've had some stuff, and then if we will bring out some of the Native American history, or we'll play some of their songs, for whichever tribe that we know is there. It tends to bring out a little bit more action, I think, because not all of them spoke English, so I think when we're trying to talk to them, they have no clue what we're doing.
Of course.
They're talking about, so
yeah, right.
And I could be totally wrong on that, but I'm just going with what I think I know as far as history. So we have had a few investigators do some Native American things, and they said it kind of amped things up a little bit. We're really close to that, and also we have the railroad track actually pretty much runs right through the backyard.
Oh, wow. So
we have a lot of different paranormal type stuff drawing energy into that home.
Right, and also with the railroads, there were, in building the railroads back in the day, so many deaths just associated with, putting the railroads in place, so that doesn't surprise me at all. Do you have any phantom train sounds that happen?
I haven't had any phantom ones, just when the railroad goes by, it shakes the house. It's pretty darn loud.
Oh, wow.
I did hear a story of somebody that did die, he fell in front of a train and he died. I don't know how close to the house he was. Somebody said they were getting his name, which I also, now that I know that, I had some interacting with the REM pod. They were actually touching the REM pod in response to questions.
Oh, nice.
And I said, are you just a pass-through guy? And it was hit it for yes, because we agreed that yes, not to touch the thing. And then I said, did you die in an accident? He's like, yeah. And then I said, was it a car? And he said, yeah. So it could be related to train car, or it could be a car. I don't know. So there could be a correlation there.
Wow. I mean, it's one of those things where, you like to open it up to all the possibilities that it could be, and I like when you can have that kind of, call and response interaction. I also do that with the K2, so that's really nice when you get that direct response. And when it comes to accidents, I mean, that's sort of one of those things that I was talking about where, that other energy draws in. We get that a lot with a big accident that happened right next door to me. unfortunately, there were a few people killed in this fatality. So we often on our spirit box will hear, accident. We actually, unfortunately, hear them sort of reliving it. So, yeah, I think there's just so much possibility at a location like yours where, you have the railroad and, this long history and death in the home. And I know that your own team has caught a lot, but you also open it up to other investigators and their teams to come in. And, I'd love to hear their, some of their experiences when they come in. I mean, that's one of the great things about being able to open up the house is not only seeing what you get, but what others get.
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying to see what other people get. And, the one thing you didn't think about when I bought my own haunted location is to how much work it was going to be.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
So I don't get as much chance to investigate as I would like, and currently we're trying to bring it back to the 1900s, so we're doing all the old Victorian papers. So right now I'm doing a lot of reworking there, so I'm kind of relying on what other people are getting, but it kind of seems like the EVPs that people get, the voices are the same. I mean, they're not the same responses, but it is the same voices.
Oh,
and the
great.
voices that I have caught are the same voices that these people have caught. So that's really interesting. I think that two really cool things that people have caught. Some people had caught two shadow figures, and they kind of, to me, looked like they were maybe like a younger person and like maybe teenagerish,
Okay.
16-ish.
Right.
And there were two shadows that ran really fast across the kitchen, and other people have said they've actually seen shadows running through the kitchen. So one team actually happened to catch those going across, and some people might say, oh well, those are headlights for cars and stuff, but because I know the house and I know where the road is and I know where the windows are and such, that there was no possible way that's even a possibility.
Right.
So that's a pretty cool footage. And then we have somebody else was using that SLS camera.
Oh, right.
And they had like a little stick figure, like a little kid, because we know we have kids in the house. And it was totally reacting. It was like by the piano, and they said, hey, why don't you go sit over in that chair? And then it did. And then they also had a K2 and a REM pod in that chair. So as soon as it sat down, the little stick figure appeared on the screen. The REM pod and the K2 go crazy. And they said, can you wave? And it would. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's another piece of equipment that I really have wanted to get myself. Does your team have one?
You know what? Alex had one, and we would use it occasionally. I didn't get a whole lot of it. I know one time it was we were at the jail, the old Hartford City Jail in Indiana.
Right.
And it was our first time using it, and I was just kind of demoing it, kind of talking to the audience, this is how it works, this is, see, I'm a stick person, blah, 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 and they kept saying, go farther back, and I'm backing up farther and farther in this long jail cell hall that I'm by myself.
Oh, fun.
But I can see the screen in front of me, and all of a sudden you see the stick figure poke out of the jail cell, like kind of behind me, like they were looking out, and I was like, oh no, and I just ran
That's very cool.
I looked around, and there was nobody behind me, but there's a stick figure on the screen.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's my next piece of equipment I think that I'd like to get. I mean, I know the spirit box will always be my favorite, but I think the SLS is really, I'd like to see it, it's one of those things I want to see in action myself to,
right.
When you get a new piece of equipment, like even with the spirit box when I got it, it's kind of where, this looks cool, but does it really work? And you want to kind of walk through it and experience it. So, yeah, I like the SLS, or at least I'm intrigued by it. So, with your team, do you have anyone on it who's sensitive?
We kind of, some of us can feel when something's around. You kind of just get that, somebody here. I tend to just be able to go places, I think, where they are. I don't know if they're drawing me there. I just feel like, hey, this is the place we need to be.
Right.
So that's about as far as our sensitivity goes. We don't have anyone who's truly it's not like a psychic medium or anything like that. Donna, she can see them sometimes, not all the time, but she sees them. every once in a while.
Right. Well, now I know you do have teams that come into the home, but do you offer it up to, people who are just maybe paranormal enthusiasts, you want to stay overnight, maybe experience a little paranormal for themselves, or is it strictly teams?
Yeah, it's anybody who wants to come in and spend the night. I think it tends to be more active if you're more of a team with equipment. Otherwise, I feel like if you're not using equipment, it could feel like it's a little quiet, like nothing's going on.
Right.
So you have no way to tell you. It's not like the house isn't like Hollywood where doors are going to be slamming and people are running up and down the stairs and things. So it's going to seem like you're probably just staying in a house, pretty much. You probably hear some footsteps and things like that, but as far as anything crazy happening, it's not going to happen. I mean, I could be wrong. They could prove me wrong, but...
Well, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's what I've always kind of said, and my co-host as well. I mean, people tend to think of hauntings as, like you said, what you see in Hollywood and movies, or even on some paranormal shows. I mean, they're going to show you the biggest things that happen, or the most shocking kind of evidence. It's not going to be like your everyday living in a house that has spirits left behind. So I can walk through my house all day and not feel anything, but if I actually turn on my spirit box and my other equipment and listen, it's a different story.
Right.
Yeah, that's what hopefully people can start realizing, that not everything is like watching Annabelle, wreak havoc or so on and so forth. So did the house have anything left behind in it? Any a lot of times these older homes may have some furniture left behind or anything from prior owners.
They left a piano and like one of those old rolly desks. It's got you lift it up.
Right.
So it's got that fold down. So those were, I think, the only. Oh, and then they left a bed too that looks kind of antique to me. So those are about the only things that they had left behind. The piano doesn't work, but people have had it play, and I thought it was kind of a cool ambiance, so I had to leave it.
I don't blame you at all. And that's very cool. We just did an episode on haunted objects, and what is your feeling, about anything attaching to objects or leaving energy kind of imprinted on an object?
Oh, I'm sure it can happen. I mean, I buy stuff all the time, the antiques and things like that, so you never know what kind of stuff I could have been bringing into the house, or anything that people else have been, bringing in the house, energies that they have drug with them and have now left them. True. At the house too. So there's all different kinds of things. Definitely you can get energy from different objects, and I actually sometimes when I go to the antique shops, I bring a K2 meter, so if it's hitting, I buy it.
That's very smart. I hadn't thought about that. Wow, good piece of advice. I love going to thrift stores, and of course that has changed a lot since the pandemic. A lot of the ones here haven't even reopened, so I'm a high risk patient, so I'm sort of really kind of holding back, and it's killing me because I haven't been in a thrift store in months. But next time I go, I'm bringing my K2.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the one down by the house just recently reopened. I haven't had a chance to stop. Every time I go by, I'm like, oh, I want to go in.
No doubt. And I collect vintage dolls as well. So, I'm kind of going through that.
Yeah, we got quite a few collections. We get quite a comments about the creepy dolls at the house.
Yeah, oh, good. So you do have some there.
Creepy ones, and I bring them there.
There you go. See, yeah, that's the idea. I mean, it's funny, too, because people also think that the dolls are going to be, like Chucky or what have you. But, sometimes, it's kind of cool to. I have a room that is full of dolls. And, I have one of my children who just is not a big fan of dolls, just finds them creepy in general, but especially the ones that are real old and, maybe haven't been taken care of, just sort of amps up that creepy factor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a whole one room that you have your dolls in the house?
They're kind of scattered in between two rooms that I kind of put them in. So we have one room that's the kids' room, and then we have an overflow room right now that we're working on that I didn't know what to do with, so the kids' room was getting too full of toys, so I just moved some over.
Oh, there you go. There you go. It sounds like a great bed and breakfast idea, to have your theme room, okay, the creepy doll room, and this one's this room. So, oh man, that would probably really book fast, I bet. So what do you have planned for the future for Boyd House? I mean, and when I ask that, I think about things that I've seen other locations do, even come around Halloween time. Do you open it up more for something like that? I mean, do you have any extensive plans?
Well, we'll have to wait for the pandemic to blow over, which has really put a damper on a lot of things this year.
Oh, yeah.
So, we were going to do some events at the house that got canceled, and so we'll hopefully be able to restart some of those back up. I'd like to do a little bit more things opening up, maybe to the town people or just, general people, just do maybe like a couple hours, come and check the place out. Here's some equipment, see what happens kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Lectures, just different kind of things like that, eventually down the road here.
Well, you mentioned the pandemic. I mean, has that, I know what goes into trying to restore an old home like that. So I'm sure that this pandemic has not done you any favors financially. Is it making it really tough to upkeep the house and everything?
Well, we had everybody in April reschedule. So now things are starting to pick back up. I think people are just starting to travel a little bit more. Being that you are the only team there, and I don't really meet anybody there. I have a code to get in.
Right.
So it's pretty much like contactless, so you're just with your group. So I think that kind of tends to bring people out a little bit more. So we're currently, all of our Saturdays are booked for August.
Oh,
and
great.
into September as well. So we're starting to pick up a little bit. I think we had a bunch of conferences scheduled to go to this year to promote the house bill. Those are canceled or been canceling. So we're hoping next year is better for everyone.
Yeah, I really do too. I trying to be optimistic. It gets harder as time goes on, but I'm hoping that, like you said, if there are teams out there, any teams listening, if you can go in there and still keep, the social distancing thing going on and go in there with your masks and just, if you're the only people there, I think people should still be able to go out and investigate under those circumstances. Has your team been going out to do any investigations away from the house since you started this process?
No, we had quite a few changes. Alex recently had a son, so he's a new daddy. And then Stephanie graduated to be a mortician, so she moved down to southern Minnesota and started a new chapter in her life down there.
Wow.
And then our other two investigators have a lot of immune issues, and so we are just all keeping our distance right now, and we can't wait to get back together. We keep texting, and we're like, I miss you.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, you bonded with your team.
We're hoping.
Yeah, I know. There's a couple places that I was all set to be going out to investigate, and then this all hit. So, yeah, I'm kind of itching to get out there. And, with your team, I mean, when you have a team that you've been with for as long as you have, they're your family. So I know it's been hard for a lot of people to be sitting at home and not have that, same camaraderie and interest going on. Knock on wood that it won't be that much longer.
Yeah, they just got to get that vaccine built, and then we'll be all right.
Yeah, gosh, keep waiting for that. I'm going to be in line real quick for that, let me tell you. So I know you've been to a lot of places, and now you have your own place, which, again, man, that sounds awesome. Do you have a dream location you haven't been to?
Not really like a dream location. I know there's a couple places I want to check out. There's that Stevenson building, I believe that's in Nebraska, but I wanted to check that one out. And then there's the Madison Seminary over in Ohio. I wanted to check that place out. So those are a couple places yet that I really want to hit up.
Well, I hope that you get to get back out there soon and do that. And is there anything that you want to tell our listeners that I haven't mentioned about Boyd House, or how they can check it out and check out your Facebook, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, not that I can think of that I haven't mentioned, but if you want to check us out on Facebook, under Boyd House, it's got like all of our updated stuff, videos, things like that. Our website is hopped up with our paranormal page, so that's St. Croix Paranormal, that's STCROIX paranormal.com, or you can just direct message us at boydhouse217@yahoo.com.
All right. Well, that's great information, everybody. Please check them out. And I've been on the page, I don't know how many times now, checking out all the evidence videos, and there's a lot on there to see. And again, Joe, it's been great talking to you. I, look forward to seeing more when things get back rolling. And it would be great to be able to go out there myself and check out Boyd House. So I hope I get to do that very soon.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Well, thanks everyone, and thank Joe for stopping by and letting us talk to her on the podcast. And please share this and check out Boyd House on Facebook. You'll be going down the rabbit hole of videos, and that's always fun. So, Joe, thank you, and we will talk again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
All right, take care, Joe.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.